What do you think are the key ingredients for successful tenant relationships?
I cannot say enough that this is a very small industry, and I have already come across the same tenant 3 times in the city at 3 different property management companies. And they'll never remember the numbers that we worked with, but they will absolutely remember how you treated them, and then they will act accordingly. So I always say to everyone, take some extra time during any conflict, any conversation and solution to make sure that you are always being kind. There's always space for kindness in every conversation, especially with tenant relationships. And if you really do take some time to understand it's not just the lease and it's not just numbers, then you really do have a much better relationship with your tenants.
What is your approach to maintaining operational excellence in the buildings that you provide service for?
You must take an interest in how your buildings run and learn something new every day. There's always something small that you can learn every day. Go to every lunch and learn. Go to every seminar that's offered. Many organizations offer online seminars at no charge whatsoever. Take the time to meet with your building operators on a regular basis. I cannot say this enough. Listen to them. They know what they're doing. Let them teach you.
Welcome to the Mastering Property Management podcast. I'm your host, Jared Sarbit. Join me as we delve into candid conversations with industry experts to uncover their strategies and insights for achieving success in property management. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, let's elevate your property management skills together. Hi, everybody. I'm Jared Sarbit, and this is Mastering Property Management. And today I have the honor and privilege of having Margaret Gorska on, property manager with Epic Investment Services. Margaret, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks very much for having me, Jared. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. Margaret, I've already had your coworker, Kevin Humphreys, the Vice President of Real Estate Management for Western Canada at Epic Investment Services, on the podcast. But for those who haven't seen the episode, tell me about who Epic Investments are.
Right. Well, Kevin Humphreys is the VP who hired me. So I feel that we're an amazing team and it's an amazing company. It's a private company that has operations both in Canada and the United States. We work with private and institutional investors. We try to make operations and finances as efficient as possible. So we have a lot of processes that other companies do not. We are growing at an impressive rate, growing in many of the cities here that we have in Canada. And we have doubled in numbers in the last 2 years. So we have the most amazing opportunity to acquire new clients, acquire new properties, and most importantly, I've been part of building a team there that is absolutely amazing, and it's a wonderful company to work with and for.
Wow, amazing! Thank you for that. Yeah, that's amazing. Doubled. That's some serious growth. Good for you. Congratulations. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into property management in the first place? What are some of the major milestones along the way? And how did you reach your current level of success?
So this is actually a very interesting story. And when I thought about that in many times in my life, I'm really surprised at how I got here, because it's really just a combination of fortunate events. As with some fortunate forks in people's roads, I must admit that I happened upon this role. This was because of an advantageous job title at a previous company. So I'll explain. After completing a project as the Director of Logistics for the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, I moved on to a project management role with a sister company. That group incorrectly housed that particular role under the real estate department. Having had the necessary security clearance in place already, as because of the Olympics, and a logistics background, I was put in charge of the Alberta RCMP portfolio. This role was conveniently titled Facilities Manager. However, it was truly a logistics role. But because I did start to learn things about building systems and operations, I found it quite interesting. Sometime later, a recruiter picked me out on LinkedIn because he ran a keyword search for facilities. So again, at our interview, he quickly recognized that I didn't have the specific knowledge, but he identified my transferable skills. He decided to present me to the client anyway. Again, by pure coincidence, that particular VP had a facilities management background. He preferred someone with that knowledge over traditional property management because that's how he came up in the world. And voila, my winding path to my first property management role. Then my first role was with a development company. So I didn't need a RECA license at the time, but my instincts did pushed me to think about it very, very seriously. And so I decided to complete mine at that time. It was a much more course heavy load. And I'll admit it was very challenging. It took 2 years while working full time, unfortunately going through a divorce and being a newly single mother. So that was something that I felt was going to help me grow. And I was right. Thank goodness. Along the way, I observed and learned an important attribute about myself. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. Although I wouldn't recommend that for everybody, you have to know your client. It is something that has really helped me along the way and has proven myself to all my clients. I treat budgets like my own wallet, and this is appreciated, of course, by everybody who is spending money on our properties. I'm also very inventive in my approach, and I always suggest out of the box suggestions. These ideas help to improve properties quite a bit. I always repeat successful strategies with all the companies that I come to work with, because if they work in one place, they're likely to work in another. And I don't think you need to come up with something new every single time, especially with experience. With each company move, I have been able to carve out a reputation where I can request what is important to me at each stage in my life. So to me, success is not a title. In recent years, I've actually turned down general manager offers because it's not the part of property management that I love the most. Again, having come from logistics, I really enjoy the operation side of things, not so much the administration side. But I have a successful career, I think, because I love what I do and I love to do this job. I wouldn't work and do it if I didn't. So I'm going to stay here until I retire and open up my own brokerage. I'm only one exam away, so I'm very excited to do that, sort of next stage of my career. But I'm definitely going to stay with Epic, as it is a company that, despite having so many years in the business, I'm still growing.
Beautiful, beautiful story. That's amazing. There's so much there, so much
Yeah.
there. Tell me a little bit about what you meant by ask for forgiveness and not permission. That really stood out to me when you said that, and I just want to understand, what does that mean exactly?
Well, I think it's become my brand, I think, because as I take a new job and take a new role, I get to know my clients very well. I get to know them on a slightly personal level. I start to understand what their interests are. I also look at what their motivations and needs in the actual properties are. And I'm able to come up with solutions and ideas on the side that they don't have the time for. So, as much as we need to follow approval processes, which of course I do, you have to also work for the company that you are currently employed with. I do like to implement ideas as I see them working well within limits and then present them to the client after they've already been working for some time. And that can be as little as changing out, a security desk to make something more aesthetic, all the way to last year when I painted a whole property and let the client know a few months after when they visited.
Wow. Okay. And
As
did
you
you have?
grow in your career, you will notice that you get more latitude, you get
Yeah,
more privileges with your experience. And that,
yeah.
again, you have to gauge and judge that with each client.
Makes a lot of sense, and a lot of confidence. I imagine you would have to have a lot of confidence in what you're doing to believe that you're you're rolling the dice a little bit by painting a whole new property, that they're going to say, "Oh my goodness, what did you do?" But I imagine that you probably don't actually have to ask for forgiveness too often, because you probably know what you're doing.
This is true. This is true. There may have been one or two small aesthetic changes that I made that were not the taste of the client, but they were easily returnable, and sometimes it's of no consequence. But yes, that's what I've come to know to be my personal characteristic.
Very cool. I love that. Can you, talking about that, and that kind of leads me, that is my next question, and maybe there's more to it than that. Can you tell me, yeah, who is, Margaret Gorska? Like, what are those key characteristics besides the asking for forgiveness, that truly make up, who you are?
I firmly believe that, again, where there's a will, there's a way. So I approach every situation with a solution before presenting anything as a challenge. I try to have at least 2 to 3 options available for presentation. Sometimes it's very intimidating, especially if you're new in the industry, to present to a client and say, "Hey, I have this idea, but we've never tried it." If you present 2 or 3, very likely one of those will be implemented, and then your confidence will build. And it's just like a snowball effect. And so once you start to do that, you feel very confident and keep doing that, which is wonderful. I mentor anyone who crosses my path. So I try especially hard with any property administrators who work within my vicinity. That means somebody works directly for me or just in the office at large. I try to expose them to everything that I do in the portfolio and especially things that they're interested in. So I try to include them. I always give credit where it's due. So if somebody else has done the work, they will get the credit and they will always know it. I also try to get folks who are new in the industry or may not have the property management title to have an opportunity to present to our upper management or even to present to the client if the opportunity presents itself. But I never quash anyone's ideas. I always think that there's room for enthusiasm for a different approach to something. I am never too old or too experienced to listen to somebody else's ideas. And that's, I think, one of the biggest qualities is I listen to anyone who works with me and I try to assist them all along the way to encourage them to do the same.
Yeah, brilliant. That is such an important skill in property management, is to be able to listen and support others and empower others to make decisions, because there's too many moving parts. So I imagine that works really well for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. What type of properties are you currently managing with Epic?
So I'm currently managing a 500,000 square foot office portfolio in 2 provinces. But ironically, this is a really fascinating story. I managed this exact same portfolio for the exact same client at a previous property management company in the city. So 6 years ago, I managed the same portfolio for 3 years, and now it's been a year now since I've managed it here with Epic. I am very grateful that our VP took the time to interview me at Epic here, and then he confirmed my abilities with the client, who gave really excellent feedback and said they would hire me on again. So I'm so grateful that my skills led me back to a portfolio that I love to manage, but thankfully for a far superior property management company to work for.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And what provinces are those two, if you don't mind me asking?
Alberta and Manitoba.
Alberta and Manitoba. Okay. Okay. So you skip a province along the way.
Skip a province along the way. And now it
Yeah.
looks like I will be getting my license for Manitoba as well. So it would be
Oh,
nice to have an associate or brokerage license there as well.
okay. Okay. I'm a Manitoban myself, from Brandon, Manitoba. So
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic. Our
yeah,
current
yeah.
property complex is in the downtown of Winnipeg,
Oh,
but
okay.
the company is definitely looking at purchasing more assets in that area. So there'll be
Great.
more to manage and I'll get to go out there a little more. Do you
Great.
get to get out there much?
Not as much as I want, and not as much as my parents would want. But yeah, I actually was speaking to my mom just the other day. She said, "You guys need to come out here this summer."
Oh,
So yeah, we
nice.
we probably will for a week or so. But yeah, it's I have to admit I like Calgary a lot more than Winnipeg, but that's just my personal my personal choice there. But yeah, no, very good. And those properties, sorry, maybe you did mention it, but are they office, industrial, or retail?
Yes. In this case, they're all office. One property actually is an industrial property, but for reasons of tenancy, everyone who is in those spaces is actually using it as an office. So it's a bit of a different tenancy mix. I also have one property which was a former car dealership, which is now a vacant property we're using for all sorts of different creative solutions. The other day, I managed to put in a movie studio into the space. They felt that the vintage and condition that it was in was very appropriate to the horror movie that they're filming, and therefore they're going to release in the summer.
Oh, very cool. Is this going to be like a Hollywood type movie, or?
Yes, I do believe that it will go to Hollywood. I think they're talking about making a miniseries and putting it on television as well. So they're doing 2 things at the same time. And
Very
this is
cool.
again another one of those out of the box creative
Yeah,
solutions that I came up with for a property that has not seen a tenant in over 2 years since
brilliant.
the tenant from the beginning has moved out.
Yes,
And I thought, well, you never know, we might be able to do something short term since there
yes.
are no takers for long term tenancy. And it was a really good suggestion, and it's really working out.
Well done. Well done. That's great. Um, what do you think are the key ingredients for successful tenant relationships?
That's an excellent question. I think most people, just based on how you tend to think you need to answer the question, they would probably say honesty and transparency. But those two qualities need to be very carefully managed. You work with the client who has very different objectives than a tenant does. Having said that, tenant turnover is an expensive exercise. So having a great relationship is key because, as we all know, happy tenants pay, right? So they stay and they pay. My job is a delicate balance of trying to manage a win-win situation between the tenant and the client. So in a previous company, for example, unlike most property management roles, I got to do all of my tenant lease renewals. So you can imagine that's a direct conflict where I'm trying to negotiate the best NER for the client. And at the same time, I have to work with these people afterwards, and they need to be happy in their space with what they're paying for their space. So I make their value, I show them the value, and I make that work for them there. I cannot say enough that this is a very small industry, and I have already come across the same tenant 3 times in the city at 3 different property management companies. And they'll never remember the numbers that we worked with, but they will absolutely remember how you treated them, and then they will act accordingly. So I always say to everyone, take some extra time during any conflict, any conversation and solution to make sure that you are always being kind. There's always space for kindness in every conversation, especially with tenant relationships. This is their bread and butter. This is what they do to feed their families. And if you really do take some time to understand it's not just the lease and it's not just numbers, then you really do have a much better relationship with your tenants. I will tell you, Jared, that every single one of my 127 tenants has my personal cell phone number. That is the absolute truth. They trust that I will take care of their needs during business hours, and I don't remember the last time I received a phone call or an emergency call after hours, unless it was truly an emergency.
Yeah, really. Okay, that's pretty trusting. That's pretty
Definitely.
brave, but yeah, that's amazing. And then kind of taking that into the properties, what is your approach to maintaining operational excellence in the the buildings that you provide service for?
Right, right. So again, because of my fortunate beginnings in facilities management, I did come already with a lot of systems knowledge. Where if you're coming up in the property management world through the administration side, you won't have that as much. But that comes with time. There's just simply no other way around it. You must take an interest in how your buildings run and learn something new every day. There's always something small that you can learn every day. Go to every lunch and learn. Go to every seminar that's offered. Many organizations offer online seminars at no charge whatsoever. Take the time to meet with your building operators on a regular basis. I cannot say this enough. Listen to them. They know what they're doing. Let them teach you. I know all my building operators are proud of what they do, and they'll be happy to share that with you in a conversation, a monthly meeting, what have you. Have a meeting with your operations about wish lists. I mean, who doesn't want to talk about their best case scenario or their ideal building wants and needs? They will guide you what the needs are at the actual property because it's not always just about utilities and line painting. There are other things that can improve a property greatly, and they know it more intimately than you do in that respect of operations. Scrutinize invoices and question contractors. You will find that they respect you much more when you question them most. By understanding how your building works, then you can more specifically understand how to make it run. Then you can find cost savings in modifying those. At least become better at budgeting or understanding the deficits and which areas and operations you can and can't control. And then you can focus on those and not spin your wheels on things that you can't control.
Amazing. Man, you're yeah, I can see why you're so successful. That's
Thank you. Thank
that is
you.
really good stuff there. Yeah,
I
really
consider
good.
this a people business, and
Yes.
that doesn't just mean your tenants, it doesn't just mean your clients. It means everyone that you work with, they're all
Yeah.
my client and they're all my tenant. This is how I look
Yeah.
at it. I owe
Yeah.
everybody something, and we need to work together to give each other what we need.
That's beautiful. Awesome. How do you leverage technology and software to streamline the property management processes and enhance the tenant experience?
Each property and each company takes sort of a different approach to this. By having an online service request system, that is a must, especially a program that tracks your requests and then can give you some data on, especially repetition. If that one front door is always annoying every single tenant, maybe it's time to do something about it. But I find people don't want to mention something if they have to call you personally, especially if it's something they're very upset about. They've now raised their attitude towards something, and it can be a bit conflict on the phone or even through emails. The online portals always seem like this one extra layer of protection from personal conversations. And that doesn't mean you hide behind the technology, but you do need to understand that some people aren't as keen on having that telephone conversation about difficult subjects as you might be. But it does not substitute picking up the phone. So if they put something online, action it, but it may be nice to follow up with a phone call explaining how you tackled it, why you couldn't do it before, especially if there was a long delay in something, and simply, apologizing, making amends for what caused some problems, and showing that you've identified it and you've actioned it, and you're going to be aware of it in the future.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It seems that is kind of becoming the standard. Is each property has their own software or app or whatever it may be that can communicate to the tenants, can communicate to the property manager. Do you find that's is it replacing that human touch, or is it just kind of like you said, giving that? It makes a lot of sense. Some people might not want that conflict. Is it just kind of allowing them to do it in a more, I guess, give a little bit of a distance when they communicate, so they don't have to have that conflict? Is that where you find the value is?
Yeah, I'm finding that what it does is it gives them another outlet with which to communicate. There's always the telephone, which I think is the least popular these days. Then there is email, but that takes time to type out the situation. Whereas in an online request system, you immediately choose the building, the floor, the type of conflict. Is it, HVAC? Is it a front door? Is it tenant noise? So it becomes very impersonal. I find that that's another really, really good tool that people do see as something that is never going to replace humans, because by nature, we visit sites. And when we visit sites, even the tenants that haven't used any medium to communicate their conflicts will do so when they see you in person. And so I don't think that will ever be able to be replaced.
Yeah. Good to hear. Good to hear. What have you experienced as recent challenges in property management?
That is one of the most challenging things that we're dealing with right now, which is security. So the world has experienced some difficult changes. Calgary is not immune to this, and unfortunately, the challenges have arrived. I've recently implemented a security system at a building which is more than 20 years old and has not seen a single issue since inception. And now we are getting daily break-ins to vehicles. We are having vagrants coming by front doors, checking them, trying to see if they can get in and steal something, more like an opportunity crime and petty crime. However, it is greatly affecting the customers that are coming to those tenants. And so we've had to do something about it. More importantly, security is very expensive. And the answer always is throw more money at it, put more budget in the security line item on the budget. But that's not always possible, especially since smaller properties who can be greatly affected by current issues are not able to fund that. So we are looking to security companies to find many more creative solutions to our needs. Bygone are the days when I used to install multiple $4 dummy cameras around the building, and it would stop all kids from skateboarding. It would stop all vagrants from panhandling. Graffiti would be gone. But unfortunately, those days are no more. People have a much a stronger approach to why they're committing these crimes and what their needs are. And there are more desperate people out there. As well, with the extreme temperatures we have in Calgary, we simply have unwanted guests who are looking for a place to stay warm. And although that's a much bigger conversation, I need to protect my tenants and their customers. It's the fact they pay rent to be there. They pay rent for me to find ways of keeping them happy and keeping them safe in their space. And so security right now needs to become much more nimble. They need to figure out how to do more with less, as the age-old saying goes. But that's because we simply do not have the budget to keep paying more and throwing more money at it. I would ask our security companies to now figure out technology solutions. There's so many things that we can do. Perhaps a different style of mobile control, maybe some infrequent or random patrols that are a little bit different. Maybe they're on foot, maybe they're in a marked car or an unmarked vehicle. So many different ways that security companies are coming up with things. And I'm very thankful for that, because we as property managers become exasperated when the calls keep coming in and keep coming in, and we ourselves cannot do anything. This is not an area where we have the ability to action anything and make magic happen. We need our security vendor to be there for us, to come up with the solutions, to know us, our needs, and our property and their needs, and do what they can, and then work with us to do so.
Wow, yeah, that's it's a really unfortunate circumstance. That's really sad to hear that, people are getting more desperate and,
Yes,
and looking to, I don't know, just I think they're in, harder times. So
definitely. And it's no longer a downtown conversation. It is now the suburbs. And that is very unusual because through my career, people would always ask, what do you prefer to manage? Commercial? Do you prefer retail? Do you prefer office? And I said, I quite enjoy the suburbs. The suburbs have a mom and pop, tenancy sometimes. They're fun. They usually live near their area. They know their community really well. They're involved in their community. It's been such a good news story for almost 20 years. And now that the crime has reached the suburbs and is affecting properties that have never seen this before, it's very sad. It really is sad. So now we just need to look at it holistically. There is no area where you can get away from it, I suppose.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Very interesting. And when you're looking for those creative security companies that are more nimble, what kind of traits are you looking for? Like, how can you, discover, those companies?
I can tell you the first and foremost is responsiveness. I need a company that provides a personal rep to me. And although I understand I'm not their only client, I would like to feel like one. I know that other vendors can do that for me, so why can't security do that? So I look for somebody who can respond to me and meet with me on site, that they're not, with no disrespect, but they're not located in another province. They're not located in a head office where we're only communicating on Teams or Zoom or the occasional phone call. They need to understand the market. They need to understand the climate, the properties here in Calgary specifically, or in whichever province and city I'm managing, of course. So that's the first and foremost. Secondly, they need to be able to pivot. So signing a 3-year contract for the exact same service is not feasible anymore. We don't know what's going to happen next year because I didn't know this year was going to happen last year when I planned my budget. They need to be able to adjust their services within a certain contractual price that still makes sense for the property.
Yes. Oh, it's
Hmm.
good stuff. Very good. As a leader in property management, what advice would you give aspiring property managers looking to climb the ranks and achieve similar success to yourself?
I've been asked this question a lot, actually. I meet a lot of young people now trying to decide if they're going to get into the real estate side of things or the property management side of things. And I think most individuals entering into the industry tend not to understand that this is a role of relationship management. The properties come second because really relationships is what it's about. It's not just accounting, it's not just reporting, and it's not just operations independently. I have found that to be successful, you have to be reasonably good at everything, every one of those, regardless of whether you like it or not. Where you will get better at that is with a positive attitude. So if you can think about everything you want to get involved in and think about it positively, you will do much better than anyone else. In order to climb the ranks, you absolutely do need a RECA license. That was not as needed before. It is now extremely sought after. So I recommend that everyone definitely starts to look at that, or in an interview present that is the first thing they're willing to do if be given the job. So that's important. Additionally, you absolutely need to understand leases. Leases drive the business. You may not like what is written in the lease, but you are going to have to enforce it. So if that's at odds with you, this may not be the right position, to be perfectly honest. You need to understand legalese really well as well, because there are so many single word issues in a phrase that can change the whole narrative. And if you miss that, it could be quite detrimental. So you just need to be detail oriented and understand legalese a little bit more. I would also say become friends with your property accountant. I really cannot stress this enough. Accountants are generally very quiet people. They tend to keep to themselves, but they are the quiet heroes who are the gateway to you understanding how what you do is presented in numbers to the client and or the client's accountants. Because at the end of the day, your client is in the business of making money, and they need to see how profitable the property is. And as nice as what you do operationally is all day, week, month, and quarter, it does come down to the numbers. And your accountant can absolutely present that in such a positive light. And then they can explain to you how they do that, why they do that. And I think it's invaluable to speak with your property accountant and get to know them, become friends with them, and let them share what they know with you.
Yeah, really, really good advice. That's the first time I've ever heard that piece of advice. So thank you for that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, it is numbers, right? It's all there's the human touch and everything, but the numbers really tell a lot of a story there. So
Absolutely. I once at a company, 2 companies ago, received an employee recognition award because I was the first property manager in their history to have developed a relationship with the property accountant and spend time with the accountants and try to create regular monthly meetings and try and create a generally amicable environment. And
yeah.
apparently nobody had crossed that threshold into that scary office in the back. So,
Interesting. Yeah, it's kind
mhm,
of the way you put it. It's a no-brainer. That's for sure.
I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah. Very good. Now, for as you know, I own a janitorial company.
Yes.
So, how do you look for janitorial companies to work with, and what qualities in the company are you looking for?
Yes, there are many janitorial companies available now in the market. And of course, that is something that has always existed at properties. So when you come into a property, you generally take over the one that is there already. It only upon tender time, and or unless there's issues, of course, with their service, that is the time that you tend to look at trying to change over. So Calgary is a small PM industry, and I'm very happy to have met amazing PMs and vendors in my career. I trust their expertise. I trust their examples, their references. When they tell me that a vendor is good, a vendor is not good, here's why not. My vendors work with multiple property managers, whereas I am only one person. So if they tell me that this particular company is at 3 different property management companies, they do such a good job, why wouldn't I invite them? For example, with Picture Perfect Cleaning, that was introduced to me by one of my trusted vendors, 24/7 Restoration, who said, who's done a great job for me. So they have said, these folks do a great job for others. You should invite them, you should include them, and so on. So, absolutely. First, I look at the availability of when I might have a tender, and then I take the list of the vendors that I have and I invite them to all my tenders to make sure that they're also included based on the references that I receive from everybody else, even if I've not worked with them before. Secondly, I look at how a company treats their employees. So the employees in a janitorial capacity are tenant facing. Even if they're the night staff, there are always employees at some point, some tenants somewhere that are going to meet the staff. And we have to make sure that they're happy to be there. They're happy to be doing their job. I don't employ them directly, so I can't make that happen, no matter how wonderful maybe my communication is or my style of teaching or developing employees. It's up to the janitorial company and their leaders to do that. And I want a company that respects what they do. Generally, the janitorial teams tend to be newcomers to the country or to the city. They tend to be maybe folks with not English as their first language. There's a lot of reasons why they might not be as confident in themselves. But if a janitorial company can make them feel more confident and respected for the job they do, and they can understand how important that job is to that property, I will see it. I will see it in everything they do, not just in the service they provide, but in the way they treat our security staff when they come in, how they treat our tenants when they encounter them. And then we become friends. So what do friends do? Friends like to gossip. And I love janitorial staff for that because they see the side of the tenancy that you never will. They will see when tenants introduce too many new appliances into their kitchen and are popping breakers left, right, and center, potentially endangering your whole building. They will tell you when a tenant has no refuse or waste in their room or their office for any period of time. That might indicate that there's an occupancy issue. So when you have relationships with your janitorial staff, you learn things that you will never learn any other way. And I very much make surprise visits and get to know people by name so that we can establish those relationships. And if a good janitorial management team brings their people up and uplifts them and makes them feel like they're valuable, that will show through every time.
Oh, I love it. Sounds like you're running Picture Perfect Cleaning or something.
Thank you. Thank you.
To bring you out to speak to our team. But no, that is truly the core of our philosophy is culture. When we first started the business, is exactly what, when I was interviewing other business owners in our industry, they would say, it's so hard to find good people and keep them. And they're always, there's so much turnover and they're always unhappy because, it's not a gratifying job a lot of the time. So we started right from the beginning of focusing on culture, and you're absolutely right that just changes everything. You start with culture as kind of your core value of making sure that your people are not just there to clean, but they have a purpose, and we're helping them achieve their dreams in their life. Because a lot of them come over here, like you said, like they might not have good English, but they might be a doctor back in Colombia or wherever it may be,
Right.
but they just can't bring that here. So they're just looking for a safe place to be. And that's what we're always striving to provide. So I love that we're on the same page there. It's really nice to hear.
Definitely. They shouldn't be the hidden figures in the background. They shouldn't be the lone wolves working by themselves. They're simply not that. They help to keep the building clean. They help to keep the tenants happy. They should be engaged. As hard as they work, the engagement should be there, and we should see that. And everyone should feel respected in the job and the service that they do. And it's very, very clear when a janitorial, like I said, upper management team respects their employees and when they don't, because you can see it in the eyes of the crews. These are human beings. When you look at somebody eye to eye, you know exactly what's going on. And so, like I said, I get to know them by name, and I know very quickly if that's working or not working. And when I don't see turnover and I see the same, John and Mary at all times, it's amazing. It's wonderful to have a long-term relationship like that.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Good. If you could manage any famous property in the world, what would that be and why?
That's a really, really good question. One really fun fact about my management is that I have had the pleasure of managing Calgary's first AAA building ever, and that was 8th Avenue Place. It was a rare opportunity, and it's certainly a valuable CV addition for me. But if I had to choose something that would be exciting and very, very famous for me, being logistically minded, I would love to manage an airport. So that was my absolute dream. It's the speed at which things happen, the different cultures, the languages. It would be an overwhelmingly exciting experience. Having said that, some people would say it's a nightmare, of course, but because I travel so much and I love airports so much, that would excite me a lot. Unfortunately, that level of game is now for younger folks. So I think I've not, I've missed that opportunity. I haven't had a chance to do so, but I'm okay because I'm genuinely happy with where my career has taken me and what I've experienced firsthand.
Yeah, really cool. I always love this question because it really tells me a lot about the person. And for you to say manage an airport, wow, you like to be busy, and that's what it tells me. You like the challenge. You like to be busy. You like
I
a lot
like
of
a lot
moving
of
parts.
moving parts. That's
Yes.
kind of where I'm at. I don't like to be stagnant. I'm not a property manager who
Um,
sits at a desk. I'm always
yeah.
traveling to my properties, getting to know everybody, every vendor, everything that I can do
Yeah.
internally and externally. But I do need many moving parts to stay happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. What you mentioned you love traveling. What would you name? Like, what would be your favorite destination, or maybe you can name a couple?
Yes, absolutely. So I have been to 52 countries, and
Wow,
I can tell you that my number one favorite is Turkey.
really?
I love Turkey. Before that, for 5 years running, it was Morocco. And
Okay.
before that, for a decade, it was Brazil. So things do change as you visit other places, but I
Really
have found
interesting.
their culture, their openness, the history,
Mm,
the food.
mhm.
They really have it all. I'll be honest with
Yeah,
you. And that's not just
yeah,
Istanbul, that's in and around the Turkey and area. I mean, I went to see Troy, the city of Troy. That's pretty
yeah. Wow.
exciting. So they
Yeah.
just have everything.
That's really neat. So my wife is actually from northern Iraq, which is just borders on Turkey.
There
So
you
so
go.
back in the day before they made the lines, like a lot of her family actually was like, ours were in the Turkey area, or like her community at least. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The most hospitable people in the world,
Yes,
and their
yes,
food is so good, so good. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Loved every
very
moment
cool.
of it. Can't wait to
Yeah.
go back. And that's not something I ever say because my goal has been to see 100 countries in my lifetime. So I said I would never go back to a country that I've been to simply because there are so many other places to see.
Yeah.
But Turkey is one that I will be going back to.
Okay. Any countries that are like, what's the next on your list? Do you have any top
Yes. So the
destinations?
next on my list is Japan in June. So I'm going
Really?
to, yes, I've already got that in
Oh,
the plans. And I think
awesome.
for my birthday in October, I'd like to go to Antarctica.
Wow, for your birthday.
For
You
my
want to be
birthday.
cold for your birthday.
I know it's
That's
terrible.
awesome.
I wouldn't normally want to do that, but it's a milestone birthday, and so I would like to take the opportunity to do something pretty exotic.
Oh, good for you. That's inspiring. We'll have to talk offline about all of that. So yeah, very good.
Absolutely.
Very good. And then finally, if you could recommend any book to the property managers, what book would that be and why?
This is a hard one because you're making me pick just one. I've been a member of the same book club for over 16 years now, and we read a book a month. So we've come across many, many different books that have really touched us and taught us about development and leadership and things like that. I have four that I would absolutely recommend to everybody to read. The number one for body and soul, I would say the Four Agreements. He teaches you confidence, teaches you how not to buy into the marketing narrative of, having to be something that you're not, making you comfortable with yourself. So definitely the Four Agreements. For leadership, believe it or not, I still have this book in my desk at all times. Difficult Conversations for Dummies. Not even kidding. The hardest part of leadership is having those difficult conversations with all the people that you're mentoring. And I feel they need to feel encouraged and not defeated. And this book shows you how to positively approach any conversation that you are having challenges with.
So is it actually the For Dummies like
It's
brand?
actually the
Like
For
it's
Dummies
actually that?
series. I am
Oh,
not
that's so
kidding.
funny. Yeah,
I
those things
purchased
are
it. I purchased it about 24 years ago, and it is still in my desk since.
that's awesome. Those books are completely underrated. There's
Very,
some, they
very.
are excellent. I wrote Picture Perfect Cleaning's business plan with the business plan for dummies.
Oh my
And yeah,
goodness.
yeah, and it was so perfect. And anyone that I ever talk to that's starting a business, looking for advice, I say use that book because it's perfect. Like it takes you right through it. So yeah,
I
very
agree.
cool.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's a good one. For financial success, because again, working for someone else isn't always everybody's cup of tea, and you can certainly do property management and run a business on the side. And I think the best book to approach that is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
yeah, Robert Kiyosaki.
Yes,
Uh,
he's amazing. And prior to reading the book, I already had a portfolio of residential real estate on the side that I own on by myself. And I turned my thinking around to residential properties being more of a liability than an asset. And I hadn't thought of it that way. And he really turned me on to that. And now I have a very different approach to my
yeah.
tenancies in my personal life.
So good. Yeah, he's got a whole series of great books that he's written. I really like him.
Definitely.
Have you read The Wealthy Barber by
Not
chance, or was
yet.
it?
I do have it
Okay.
at home.
Yeah,
Hmm.
David Chilton. That's a Canadian. He's kind of like the Canadian Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's very, very
Dragon's
good.
Den, right? Or
Sorry?
isn't he on Dragon's Den?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. He was. I don't know if he still is, but
Oh,
yeah,
true.
for sure. Yeah, you're right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, really, really good. And it's like yeah, the Canadian kind of approach. Like
Mhm.
because like it's talking about like RRSPs and real estate in the Canadian market, and yeah, really good. I don't know if it might be outdated now because it was a long time ago that I read it, but um,
True. And our
yeah,
market in Calgary specifically is so volatile. We are up and down.
yeah,
Everybody gets a raise and they buy a boat. We're a
yeah.
landlocked city, but everyone has to have a boat. I was raised
Fair
in
enough.
Toronto where people were more savers. They got a raise,
Ah,
they put it away for a rainy day. So coming here was a
Interesting.
real shock to the financial system and my way of
Interesting.
thinking, but yeah.
Interesting. Good. Yeah, it's good to know. Good to know. Getting there.
And
One more book.
one more, exactly. I have one more. It's for understanding the success of talented individuals because most people say to themselves, oh my goodness, that person, they're just more talented than me. Oh, they were born that way. Oh, they're like this or they're like that. I think The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell will really help you to see how that prolific person became who they are. And I think we will gain more confidence in ourselves to understand what it really takes to get there. And some of it is some luck, some of it is birth years and things like that. But bottom line, I think people really underrate themselves and their talents because they see other people who are so more vastly successful than they are. And I think this really helps you to see how some of those individuals came that way.
Excellent. And that's the whole 10,000 hour concept, right? And
Exactly, exactly.
It's so true. It's unbelievable. And that can apply to sports, to business, to so many things. And yeah, wow, this book club of yours, I don't know if it's if there's an opening, but it sounds like a great book club.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Jared. It's a professional women's book club.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't belong there. I don't belong there. Yeah. No, that's
I'm sorry. We can make
okay.
some exceptions, but this is a tough one.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
No,
I will
amazing.
say
Well,
that I took that book, I took The Outliers to heart. I
yeah.
do practice what I preach. I don't waste people's time. And I actually took it
Yeah.
to heart in when my son was entering school in
Mm,
kindergarten and then grade one. So I did put him in early. He had that opportunity because of the cusp of his birthday. I could have kept him back another year and I put him early. But because of The Outliers book, I put him in early and gave him what I consider an advantage. He's only in grade 5, so we'll see if I was right or
yeah.
not. But I think there's a lot to learn from experts like this.
Oh, it's really interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting. We're actually my son. His birthday is in February, and he's 4 right now. So we're literally in that exact same thing.
Mhm.
We were thinking of holding him one more year to give him like come in with confidence, but we let's talk. Let's talk after
Let's do.
that. Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, Margaret, what a great conversation. You've got so much amazing insight and valuable insight for the industry. So thank you so much for coming on, and I wish you tons of continued success. All the best with the brokerage that you mentioned, and Epic Services has a real winner on their hands. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Jared, for having me. I hope that people will watch these podcasts and learn from all of my colleagues that have been on your wonderful, wonderful podcast because I hope that they're encouraged and come into the business and stay in the business and know that you can be greatly successful. So thank you very much for holding these podcasts for us.
Amazing. My pleasure, Margaret. My pleasure. All right. Take care.
Thank you.